Right? So it didn't say I should be here by myself, and it also didn't say that I should be home by myself. Right? Didn't he say we were supposed to gather together more? As we, yes. Yes. Thank you, brother. In his name, right? As we're seeing those days, well, I don't know if they're approaching. I think they're already here. Football news and police stations are on fire. That's pretty weird stuff. So I think some of those days are already here. So that should really be a swift, quick kick to convince us that that's not a joke and not a suggestion, that we need to be here. So continuing from what we were looking at last week. What were we talking about last week? Anybody remember? Thank you, Elder. Elder says that we were talking about love. And indeed, we were. And some people might say, wow, that's all I hear from you guys. Loving pink unicorns and huggy kissy and all that. Come on, what is this? The world's on fire. Give me something useful. Well, I would say that that's more useful than anything else. Come on. Right? That's right. He didn't tell them that you're going to go out and make new converts with your swords. Peter, put that thing away. He didn't say that every man is going to know that you're one of my followers, one of my disciples, because you went to Harvard. You're so educated. You so smart. Most of the apostles were not all that smart. I'm not saying that they were stupid. They weren't. They were fishermen. They were not educated at what we would call a college, a university. They were tradesmen. Not downing tradesmen, not downing colleges. That's just the fact of what these people were. Paul was the only one, besides, well, Luke, okay, so two, right, that had what we would call higher education. Luke knew, well, whatever passed for medicine back then, we don't really know. Obviously, it was what we would look at and go, my gosh, that's medieval. That is so archaic. But it was the best they had. So it says that he was a physician. Right? And then Saul, who started as Saul, was a scholar. So he took those two and 10 others who basically were net menders, fish catchers, and shipbuilders. They might have been very, very good at small water navigation and figuring out what's weather's coming by looking at clouds and what color does the sunset look like, things like that. Those were their talents, but what else were they really highly trained in? They weren't. So he didn't tell everybody that you're going to know that these are my guys because they're so massively intelligent and so eloquent and so incredible with their words and their speeches. He said it's going to be really simple. They're going to know you as they're going to know me through you simply because of how you relate. The love you are showing one to another. That was it. That was it. He didn't say it was any more complicated than that. That was all of it. So if somebody's saying, well, why don't you give me something more substantial? What do you want? What's more substantial than that? When he said that everything hinges around that. Right? And then they were trying to mess with him. He said, what's the most important law? He said, love God. And then love yourself and your neighbor just as you would love you and God. He said, around that, all the law is built. So they tried to catch him there too, right? They were thinking they were smart, right? Because they were educated to what they thought they knew, which was all ritualistic. Right? So if we only looked at that based on how many laws they could tell you, I don't know if anybody could ever quote, was it 614, 13, 27, something like that. 600 something, right? I mean, that is a massive number. You think any of these guys had a memory that was good enough that they could recite that entire list? I don't know, maybe. Do you think they were able to keep every single one of those? No.
No.
Because we were already told that the law had a flaw.
Yes.
That's right. Right.
Otherwise, they would have just left it alone. You know, why don't we still have a big pit in the back for killing oxen? Yeah? Let's get some slaughter going. We got a big old barbecue. You have the neighbors coming in because apparently pit beef smells pretty good to some people. So, you know, I don't know what it would smell like to me, but some people are probably like, oh, lunch is cooking. Oh, no, we're just doing another sacrifice. You know, we have to do this every year because this is the law. But didn't we do a whole lesson on how that was a failure? Not that God was a failure, but that was not his finished, complete plan. That's why it wasn't complete and it wasn't 100% effective. It was a delaying action, right? We went through that. So with that delaying action, he said later on, I can do something bigger. I can do John 3:16. I can do I love the world so much that I give my only begotten Son. No more of a concrete representation of love than that, right?
Right.
All right, so let me roll back here a little bit, real fast on what we were looking at last week. So the writer reviewed a marriage certificate, and I think I hit this right before I closed, from the 6th of June, 1880. That's 140 years ago. A comparison of this document with today's marriage contract, and he put contract in quotes, because if you got any kind of real money, there's probably going to be a prenup somewhere in there, right? You know, if she's coming in with a 91 Toyota Corolla and you got a garage full of Ferraris and a Land Rover, and your garage is bigger than what she thought a house looked like, people tend to be careful, don't they? That's how we see it now, right? Look at what this guy's talking about 140 years ago. Reveals something of how far love has drifted in the, well, he says 100 years because this is a little older, right? So in the last 100 years from its ancient morning, the certificate is adorned with scriptures. Man is the head of the woman. Woman is the glory of the man. Whoso findeth a wife, findeth a good thing. The wife is a crown to her husband. Whoever says stuff like that now? Who says stuff like that? Included is a statement upon satisfactory evidence to me by both and each of them, jointly and severally given, showing they had freely and deliberately chosen each other as bosom companions for life and were sacredly pledged to each other for a faithful performance of all duties arising out of the marriage relation. That's a pretty involved contract, isn't it? You're wondering, you know, what lawyer wrote this thing up? Yeah. They try to get all of those little pieces in there, right? Ever try to read even just an auto purchase contract? There's an awful lot of it. Yeah, verbiage is a good way to put it. Yeah, we'll go with that. Keep it nice PG, right? Verbiage. Most of it don't mean anything to anybody else except another attorney, right? But you're randomly signing there at the bottom, agreeing, oh yeah, okay, sure, for the next 5, 6, 7 years, you're beholden to that stack of paper that you couldn't really understand half of, even if you did read the thing all the way through. And they're just delighting in pulling that over, aren't they? Oh, yeah, these guys, they're not lawyers. They don't know what all of that stuff means. I put all these different things in there, and they're just going, I'm not sure that's a good deal. And look at all the caveats that are in here. This was a real marriage contract, wasn't it? It was an actual buying a house, buying a car grade contract here, wasn't it?
Right.
And now people are just like, Yeah, just skip to the part, right? Yeah, they left the part, right? I said, yeah, man and wife, man and wife, go. Okay, good. Let's get out of here. We got this real big reception waiting. I paid a lot for that food, and I hear it's really good. I want to eat, and I want to get boozed crazy until I'm so stupid I can't see. That's a worldly wedding, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, what about the whole, just jump along through. Pastor, man and wife, will you? Are they spending any time to think about all the other parts that they were asked to pledge? Some people would say recite, because that might be all it is. Yeah. But recitation doesn't have any real weight to it, does it? So here, these, it's not always famous people, but there's them for examples, right? And where are they in the news? 7 months later, filed for separation, irreconcilable differences, and 2 more lawyers getting made into millionaires over all the wranglings, motions and denials and remotions and refiles and on and on and on, and it keeps going. And the judge is just like, and the lawyer's going, counting them off. Why was it so different 140 years ago? God set the example for us in unselfish love when He gave His only begotten Son. John 3:16. Christ's love was totally giving in nature. There was nothing we had to offer in return. Christ died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die. Yet peradventure for a good man, some would even dare to die. God commendeth His love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Though extremely rare, it might be possible to find someone willing to die in the place of a good person. Most of us were not very good. We were ungodly and sinful, yet God loved us anyway, enough to send to give His only begotten Son, His express image in our place. Love cannot be perceived apart from action. Word means little, except for His. We know He cannot lie. We are not so good at that. And it's by the supreme action of our Lord, the death of Christ on the cross, that we perceive the love of God. Hereby perceive we the love of God because He laid down His life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. That's 1 John 3:16. Interesting how that works. In the cross, God gave us a high and lofty example. As He laid down His life for us, so should we lay down our lives for others. The demonstration of God's love did not end with Calvary. From there, God has continued to display His love for humankind by providing for every need mankind will ever know. In the Old Testament, God was known by various compound names, each of which had an attribute or characteristic. Remember we went through those? We did a study on those one time, right? Jehovah Jireh means the Lord will provide. Jehovah Rapha is the Lord that heals. Jehovah Shalom, a lot of us know that one, Lord of peace. Jehovah Tiskanu, the Lord of our righteousness. These and many other names of God in the Old Testament reveal Him to be concerned with every conceivable need of the human race. So all these names are summed up in only one. Jesus. Finished and accomplished everything, right? Paul says, but my God shall supply all your need according to His riches in glory by Christ Jesus. Letter to the Philippian church. God demonstrated His love to the Israelites with manna from heaven and water from a rock. God still supplies the needs of people today, and His motive is His love. But I say unto you, love your enemies, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For He maketh His sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. We use that part a lot, don't we? But don't we kind of fail to recall that there's a little more attached to that?
Yes.
Saying, that again. Love your enemy, that you may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. Because if not, you're the father of the one that's not in heaven, right? Or, I mean, you're serving the Father who is not in heaven. Yeah, we get that right. one side or the other. There's no Switzerland here. You are not taking a neutral side. You're either on or off. You're with or against. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and the good. How's that fair? There's only one sun, right? So it's gonna do for all of us, isn't it? It sends rain on the just and the unjust. Rain's not selective either, is it? For if ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Therefore, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. That was Matthew's observation. The love of God motivates him to supply the basic needs of humans, including those who do not love him. All about us, the sparkling stream, the roaring waterfall, the sprigs of green poking up through the soil, the fresh breeze, and the warm glow of the sun. We see God manifesting his love for the whole of mankind. What do you think of those observations? A sparkling stream, a roaring waterfall, green poking through the soil, fresh breeze and warm glow of the sun. Okay, without a waterfall, we have no water, right? We die. Sparkling stream, still no water.
Living waters.
A sprig of green poking up through the soil. Food. Water, 2-3 days, we're pretty much done. Food, couple weeks, but none of us can survive without either of those, right? Fresh breeze, what? Keeps air moving, right? Which is important because what? Otherwise, if it just sits, it's like water that's laying. It gets bad, right? Things build up in it, vapor and stuff, things that are smelling bad need to be removed. If that convection, that breeze isn't moving, trees are getting rid of our extra carbon dioxide, right? And they're giving us oxygen. But if there was no way to push that around, if you had a big forest, you'd have a whole bunch of oxygen over there, and everybody else would be dead. Because the carbon dioxide would be stuck where we're at, wouldn't it? So it's necessary for our planet's envelope, our atmosphere we call, to be moving, right? And without all of that, all of it would be pointless without the sun. Right? We would have no light, we would have no heat. Well, actually, we really pretty much have to do nothing because it keeps our planet anchored too. Nobody can really explain that whole thing yet, how gravity can act that far away, but without the sun, we would just spin off into space, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
So we would have a pretty much what? Nice, ugly, burned out cinder, wouldn't we? With nothing growing on it. So even though all these things sound like, oh yeah, stream, yeah, it's nice. If you look a little more into every one of those things that guy just mentioned, every single one of those we can't put away. We can't live without them. They all have massive significance. And he was smart enough, because it says his way is, our thoughts are way past our thoughts, figured out all of these necessary things and how to construct them and how to make them continue to operate for a very long period of time. If we take the scientific explanation, it's been about 5 billion years, and our little dirt wall keeps running. So he did a pretty good job, didn't he? Because we try to build something and it breaks, what, a couple weeks, years maybe? I mean, we think we're all smart. We do the best job we can constructing a spacecraft, which is kind of like a mini Earth that has to have everything that we need, right? Otherwise the astronauts die. And we're lucky if we get a couple of weeks out of that thing before it needs some repairs. And we think we're so brilliant that we sent this thing to the moon. I'm not doubting that accomplishment. I still am in awe that we ever pulled that off. But look at all the trouble that we had doing that. Every single one of those missions had glitches. None of them were ever perfect. 13 was really bad because the crew almost died, but all the other ones had problems too, and we think we're so smart, and God's just going, okay, well, how do you build a planet then and talk about it? You come back after you did that, we'll see. We'll compare brain bands here. But the level of all that smart that he put into it only shows what? That he had a worry, right? He had a care. He had love to us. Otherwise, he would have not done all those things and just went off and done something else, whatever he felt like. I'm kind of busy. I'll get around to it. But we were that ultimate point, right? The very end of the spear. We were the ultimate expression of what he was building. It didn't say that Jesus died. He gave us what he gave. Like I was just saying about all the neat things that have to work for us not to die, but yet this is all temporary anyway.